Hi, it's Don Quixote, and in this video I'm going to talk about the Retouch plugin. In Photoshop 2021 or higher, click on Plugins, Retouch, and Retouch. In the main view of the plugin, we have three areas. One where we see all the available categories like dodge and burn, frequency separation, retouching tools like check layers, elongation, inverted high pass, or match color. We have a category for actions where you can add your very own actions. One for export where you can simply export your files to different files and folders. And we have a favorites where you can add your favorite presets. Except the favorites category, all other categories have a burger menu right here. And when I click on the burger menu, I have two options available. I can either add a new preset or I can edit the list. If I click on edit list, I can hide the presets or I can delete them permanently. If I hide the presets and confirm, they won't show in this list view. If I want to get them back, I can just simply click on the eye icon and they're back. In the presets area, you find either the presets that come with the plugin or, as mentioned before, you can create your own presets for each of those categories. And to apply a preset, you just simply double click on the preset entry. And as you can see, we just created a burn curve within a dodge and burn folder. So if I click on the dodge preset, the dodge layer will be created. And this preset is configured to always put those curved layers into the same dodge and burn folder. So if let's just say if I have another folder with several layers and I click on the burn curves, it will still add the burn curve to the dodge and burn layer, no matter where I am in the layer hierarchy. Let's delete this and take a look at the other presets. Let's say I want a frequency separation, a simple one with simple Gaussian blur. Here I'm being asked what the radius is. Let's just say 10 for this image. Press OK. And as you can see, we created a low frequency separation layer and a high frequency separation layer. We automatically added the parameters into the folder name, so we can see it's a frequency separation GB for Gaussian blur and with a radius of 10 pixels, which is nice to have if you reopen a file and maybe want to recover some areas, so you can just simply create another frequency separation with Gaussian blur and 10 pixels. In the Retouching Tools area, we find check layers, which is basically a group with adjustment layers helping you to see imperfections in your images by inverting an image, by adding a solar curve, adding contrast, turning the image black and white, having a channel mixer to see skin imperfections, neutral color, increased saturation, and so on. There's also elongation, inverted high pass. There's also a match color preset. If I double click on that, I can select the first color. Let's just say the pink eye line here and the color of the lips here. And now I can select a white brush and start painting on my lips to adjust the color. But let's talk about those presets in a minute. First of all, I want to show you how you can adjust or create your own presets. And stick with dodge and burn, click on the burger menu and click on the add preset. On this page, you see we have a dodge and burn preset and the preset is not saved yet. We have three options for the dodge and burn preset, like the method blending mode. We have layer and group settings, and we have preset settings like the name and the add to favorites. Let's start from the beginning. We have 4 methods available for dodge and burn. We can create an empty layer or a 50% gray filled layer. We can create a curves adjustment layer, and we can create a curves adjustment layer that is a little bit more advanced, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So let's start with an empty layer, and you can decide either if you want the layered blending mode to be soft light or overlay. Let's stick with soft light. You could increase or decrease the layer opacity. So let's say you start with 85%, and if you realize it's still a little bit too less, you could then increase the opacity to 100%. But in this case, I'm going to stay with a 100% opacity. Let's go back to the next section. The layer naming, you can create a custom name, which would be dodge and burn, or let's just name this DB just for demonstration purposes. You can a counter, so it would always be DB1, DB2, DB3, and so on. You can protect the layer, which is a good idea to lock the position so you don't accidentally start dragging the layer around and it doesn't match the original image anymore. You can find a color for the dodge and burn layer. So if you click on this icon, you can change the color to, let's say, blue. Or if you click on this one, you can delete the color, but let's stick with blue for now. You can add the dodge and burn layer into a group, or you can say it is without a group. And the plugin has several group options. So you can either put it in the same group or in a new group. Same group would be, let's just say, same group, no subfolder. And let's name this dodge and burn test. And if I click on play, it would create a dodge and burn test folder and put the dodge and burn one layer inside the folder. If I select the background and click again on play, it would still put the new layer into the same dodge and burn test group. If I switch this and say new group, dodge and burn new, and would create on play, it would create a dodge and burn new folder above the test folder. If I would want to create it inside the test folder, I would have to go in this area and say allow subfolders. And if I hit play now, it would always create it into a new folder, which gets a little bit chaotic for my opinion. So let's just delete this and this and this. And there's of course always the option to say no group. So it would be the dodge and burn layer only. Well, once you figured all out, all the parameters, and you're satisfied with the result, you can go to the last setting and create a preset name for it. Let's just say dodge and burn test. And once that is done, maybe you want to create this as a favorite. You can create on save and go back to the main overview. And now you can see the dodge and burn test preset was created. If I switch to my favorites, you see it's also here. And if you decide to do any changes on this preset, you just simply click on those three bubbles here. You get back to the preset and you can say that's not a favorite anymore. Or maybe I want to put this into overlay and set opacity to 76%. You can click save again. And you see now it has been removed from the favorites. And if I click play, you see that it's now in overlay and 76%. Let's take a look at some existing dodge and burn presets. Let's say the advanced dodge and burn curves. If I double click on it, you realize that there was a folder created named dodge and burn. And inside this folder, we have a separate folder for dodge and a separate folder for burn. And within the dodge folder and the burn folder, we see a curves folder and a and a hue saturation folder. In the dodge area, it's desaturating by -15. And in the burn folder, it's saturating by 15, which is a little bit more of an advanced technique, which tries to avoid color shifting. But let's take a look at the options here. So in the main options, we selected the curves advanced layer, and you can either just create a dodge curve. So if I click this one, it would just create a dodge curve, or you can create both. You can ask the panel to adjust the saturation or not. So that's an option you have, and you can also describe how much saturated or desaturated the hue saturation adjustment layer should be. And let's take a look at the layer and group settings. And as you can see, we're going to add those folders into a same group with no subfolder. You can also give the group a new label color if you want, but that's not necessary. So that's the dodge and burn options you have. Let's take a look at the frequency separations options. And again, let's create a new frequency separation layer. Also in this category, we have three options. We have the main options where we can decide the method for the frequency separation. You can use Gaussian blur, median, high pass, or surface blur. So pretty much every common technique to use with frequency separation is within the methods here. You can define the default value, but for me personally, frequency separation is always something that needs to be adjusted individually for each image. So we want to make sure that the show dialog is active. If it's not active, it's going to use the default values without asking. As you can see here, if you activate the show dialog, the Gaussian blur or median or high pass, whatever dialog you selected, will open where you can set the radius individually. We also have the option to protect frequencies with copies, which I highly recommend. So let's select this one and click on play. And in this case, we have a low frequency and a high frequency, which are both protected. So if I take a pen or something, Photoshop will not allow me to brush or edit those layers. But I have an edit layer above the original layer where I can work on it. And if I realize that I did something stupid, I can also always create a layer mask and undo the things I did. Let's delete this as well. So we also have the option to create an additional layer between those frequencies. So let's just say I want to have a color layer in between. I just deactivate the dialog for demonstration purposes. And we have a color adjustment layer where I can start painting with, let's just say, a color just in between those details and those colors. Again, you have the option to name and color label all of the individual layers. You can add them in groups with parameters or without the parameters. You can define the name for the group. And as usual, you can save the preset or favorize it. Next category are the retouching tools. And for the retouching tools, we have four options. We have the check layers options where you can define which of those check layers will be added. So if I just want the invert and the increase saturation, I can deactivate the other ones. And I can say open group on creation. I can deactivate this. The group will be closed once I've created those check layers. And as you can see, now we only have an invert and increase saturation layer. We can rename all of those layers. So let's just activate a couple more and go back here. So I can find an individual name for all those layers. I can color label them as I prefer, and I can decide if I want to add them into a group or no group. The last section, you can save or favorize this preset. We have the elongation, and for this, let's open another image. So with the elongation preset, I can elongate an image horizontally or vertically. In this case, I select horizontally. I can create a scale, so let's just say 5, and I can adjust the alignment, so I can either extend the canvas or align to left to right, or in the vertical case, top or bottom. So let's just say I want adjust align to the top. And all I have to do is now with the marquee tool, select a leg, make sure to not select the foot, and click on play. And as you can see, the leg was elongated. Let's just delete this layer for a second, because I can also ask the scale on creation. So same thing, I select the lower part of the leg. And now the plugin is asking me for the scale. So let's just say maybe a little bit more just to overdo it. And you see the leg was elongated without distorting the foot or the rest of the body. And again, same thing here, you can rename, you can color label, you can put this inside a folder and save it. Next thing would be match color. And as I already demonstrated, you can select a color. And there's not much options here. I can either select if the reference is the first color or the second color. But as you can see, we have another section available here, which is dedicated to the layer mask. So I can describe if the layer mask of the match color group will be white, meaning that all is visible, or black, which means that all is invisible and I have to paint with a white brush. Let's stick to this. Stay with first color reference. So let's just say that's my first color, the lips. The second color is the eyeliner. So now in this case, I want to adjust the eyeliner to the lip color. Select a white brush and paint. And now the color matches perfectly with the color of the mouth. Last but not least, we have the inverted high pass retouching option, and same thing as in the frequency separation. I can ask the plugin to show me the dialog. I can define a default value, and I can also define the blur factor for the inverted high pass. You can use any of those which will be created automatically. Let's just say 20 is fine. And now it'll take 1/3 of the original value, which is 6.7 pixels, as we can see in the layer naming here. Or if you create a custom dialog, the high pass will open, and after that the Gaussian blur will open, and you would have to manually enter the value. Same thing here, we have a mask section available where you can describe if there's a mask at all and if it's white or black. And that's the retouching tools. Next category is actions, and to create a new action, just simply click on the burger menu and hit the add preset button. Select the set you want an action from and the action you want to add. You can also hide the history, meaning that, let me see, without the hide history, you will see a make layer and lock layer. Let's just go back. When I hide the history, it will just describe this as the action. So let's just say action. Let's just name this lock layer and repeat this. And this will just take the name instead of the multiple steps you would normally find in the history panel. So there's a little bit more to the actions. So that's pretty much everything you can do with the actions. But let's say you want to add a full set of actions into as presets in here. That would be a little bit annoying. And that's where our settings come into play. So let's just make a break on the categories and click on the flyout menu on settings. And in here you find 4 different categories for settings. We have a general settings where for now you can just switch between English and German language. You have permissions. I get back to this in a second. You have add-ons, which are those categories in here. So if you, let's say, if you never work with frequency separation, you can just deactivate it and the icon for the category won't be here. But as you can see, we have options for actions. So if you click on this button here, you get to configurations where you can select a whole set. And let's just say we want to import all of those actions. So we have those 2 icons to either deselect or select everything. Let's just say except this one and this one, and then create presets. It says 6 actions successfully created. So when I go back to the actions, we now have those 6 presets imported. And that's how you can integrate your very own actions into the Retouch plugin. Next category would be the export preset. And the export add-on is a very powerful tool, but it needs a little bit of adjustment. So as you can see, we already created some presets here: TIFF for print, save PSD, preview JPEG. But the presets become more powerful the more you adjust them to your needs. So let's create a new preset. And as you can see, we have 4 file formats. We have PSD, JPEG, PNG, and TIFF. And we also have a JPEG save for web and PNG save for web option, which are way smaller than the regular formats. And according to each format, you have different options. For JPEG, you have the quality and a color profile. For PNG, you have transparency and embedded color profiles and metadata and stuff like that. For TIFF, you have compression and bit depth and save layers. So all those options, which you know from saving your own images, are available here. But in another section, we can also change the image size. So let's just say you want to create a quick temporary JPEG on your desktop. You could simply select desktop, quality 6, default color profile, but you want to resize the long edge to, let's just say, 1920. Allow upscaling just means if the image only has a width of 800, it would still go to 1920. You can also change the resolution to, let's say, 72 or 144 or whatever you want, but let's just leave it as it is. You can rename the document, and there's several options for that. You can find your own name, but what I like in this case is just a timestamp, since it's a screenshot of the original image, and you have the destination. This is where the magic happens. So you can either define a specific folder. You just click like your desktop. You can put it into a subfolder. You can define the original folder, which is nice if it's already saved as in PSD or if it's open from the original source. If you create a new file, this won't work since it wasn't saved before. A nice option is also a parent folder, which means the parent folder, which allows a lot of automation things. And you can also ask the plugin to ask you on export where to save an image. So the important part about those destinations is that Photoshop needs permissions for those. That's something that changed completely. And you need to adjust this for either every single time you save an image, or you can also define it globally. If you select a folder, let's just name this specific and click on open. When you now press the save button, you already saw that the image was resized. And as you can see in my test environment, a specific folder was created with the timestamp, and the permission was created automatically. So if I go back to my settings and I click on the permissions area, you see that a permission was added. So if I select the parent folder and click on play, we get a dialog asking to grant permission to save on desktop. And the parent folder of desktop in this case would be users DOM. So you can either select the destination manually, but I'm going to cancel this at this point, or again, you can manage permissions. And that's the thing I was talking earlier about. So if you don't know where to find this, go to settings, and in the second section you find the permissions. And as you can see, we already added a permission to this one, but the easiest way would be to grant Photoshop permission for the whole user folder. So go to add permission, select the user folder, click open. So now the user folder was added, and now you can save to desktop and download folders and everywhere you want to within the user folder without another dialog to appear. So let's say you just have a hard drive and you always save your images to a specific folder on your hard drive. You would just add permission for the whole hard drive, and Photoshop now has access to save in every single folder of those hard drives. So that's a quick overview of the Retouch plugin. We really can't wait to see how the Retouch plugin is going to improve your retouching workflow. Take care and bye.